Calaroga Shark Media.
Oh man, are you excited? We're getting a new Taylor Swift album, The Life of a Showgirl. Taylor made the announcement on Instagram at 12:12 a.m. and I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Now, all this reminds me of that time. Jo Koy, who's just got a reputation for being so mean. That's his reputation, isn't it? I'm pretty sure it is. Remember at one time he was hosting the Golden Globes. Taylor Swift was at the Golden Globes, and Taylor must have gotten stuck in traffic or something and had to make a big dramatic entrance. Remember, she walked across the room and everybody was staring at Taylor Swift. Remember those particular Golden Globes? And then she sat down, and then, boy, Jo Koy just told this horrible, mean joke. I hate to even play it for you, but just for context, let's listen.
As you know, we came on after a football doubleheader. The big difference between the Golden Globes and the NFL, on the Golden Globes, we have fewer camera shots of Taylor Swift. I swear.
I mean, that is vicious to go after Taylor Swift like that. And of course, she correctly reacted by just totally stone-facing Jo Koy and then helping to create the narrative that Jo Koy was not funny hosting the Golden Globes, and well-deserved, Jo Koy. I mean, picking on Taylor like that, awful. After the show, Jo Koy spoke to Entertainment Tonight, and the tone-deaf Jo Koy said, "Oh man, it was cute. It was cute. I was just saying it's less cutaways, that's all." Whew, dude, read the room. Johnny Mac's a bit of an SEO whore today, forcing Taylor Swift into the title. Hey, I need downloads. Here's a question making the rounds. Is Jimmy Kimmel preparing to leave the United States? You see, he's a citizen of Italy now, and he might leave the country because of a certain politician. Let me answer. No. Jimmy Kimmel is not going to leave the United States. You sound crazy. You sound stupid. Kimmel was on the podcast of his ex-girlfriend, Sarah Silverman. Sarah said, "A lot of people I know are thinking about where they're going to get citizenship." This in reaction to a famous politician. Kimmel said, "I did get Italian citizenship. What's going on with that politician is as bad as you thought it was going to be. It's so much worse. It's just unbelievable. I feel like it's probably even worse than he would like it to be." Kimmel then discussed Joe Rogan, saying, now you see these clips of Joe Rogan saying, "Why is he doing this? Why are you deporting people?" And people go, "F you supported him." I don't buy into that. The door has to stay open if you want to change your mind. That's so hard to do. If you want to admit you were wrong, that is so hard and so rare to do. You're welcome to do so. John Oliver spoke to The Hollywood Reporter about how the late-night hosts get along, and John said, well, the stakes are just lower now. There's no point in being in a war. You're not fighting over any meaningful territory. We've been in contact as a group since the strike. That's the famous Strike Force 5 podcast, which was fantastic. So as soon as the news broke about Colbert, we were all checking in with Steven in the chat, and then he came up with the idea and asked us to come, and of course, we're all going to do it. You want to be able to support him and his staff in a horrible, horrible time. The New York Post wrote about all this Howard Stern silliness. They say reports of the show's impending end have re-energized Howard Stern, who insiders say wants to prove he's still one of the best interviewers around. See, now I wish it had said Howard wants to just prove he's one of the best around, but that Howard wants to prove that he's still one of the best interviewers around proves the whole point that Howard has lost the narrative. The source tells the Post he's in a bring it on mind frame. A source tells the Daily Mail if he signs with Sirius again or anyone else, it will be his last contract. That makes sense. The man is 71 and has a ton of money, and as Johnny Mac has loudly said, he's going to do a farewell tour on Sirius XM, by the way, I will add. But the source told the Daily Mail if Sirius doesn't sign him, he'll have a backup plan. He's not going to allow anyone to be the reason for the end of his career beside himself and what he wants to do. That source speculated Howard might move to HBO Max. No, he won't. They have no money. Or Netflix. I guess maybe. I don't think Howard was ever that good at television. See the Channel 9 show? I guess the E! Show was all right. I mean, would he just do a fake radio show that's not on the radio and film it like a radio show and stick that on Netflix? I guess possibly, perhaps that's possible. The source said, Howard likes what he likes, and though he could be bitter on how things are going, it isn't anything new to him. He also isn't blaming things on his age. The world has changed. He has changed himself. If he didn't, he would have been gone a long time ago. He still wants to figure something out to stay, especially for his team that would be mostly affected. As I said in my commentary, renew for less, work less. That's the solution, everyone, and they will take it. Barrett Media wrote about Howard and is aligned with the way I think that Howard has changed over the years and forgot what made Howard Howard. But Barrett Media correctly points out Howard, who universally held disdain for the white-collar elites in New York City, was making huge money. He had a reputation as a bit of a recluse who avoided the fancy parties. In New York City, getting the right invite is like winning the lottery, and Howard was never seen at those gatherings. He went through a divorce and eventually remarried a remarkable woman named Beth. He bought a place in the Hamptons and began attending the very parties he once criticized. Barrett Media says, my theory is that the Hamptons party circuit was important to his new wife. If you're dining with the very people you once loathed, your show will change. Howard began to tame down his interviews. Howard Stern has become the sycophant he once claimed to hate. His antics became as tame as a sleeping puppy. The show lost its edge as Howard kissed up to the powerful and famous. It is disappointing that Howard will not ask pompous celebrities tough questions anymore. It's purely because he wants to be their friend, not the friend to his longtime audience. I'll chime in and point out we're talking about Howard Stern for the first time in like 15 years. I'm going to play a clip for you. Could this possibly be real? Kate Smurthwaite had a show at the Fringe and posted in a video, Oasis should be more considerate. Apparently, the reason no one showed up at Kate's show is because Oasis fans are not interested in her show. Now, this is the Fringe. Maybe this is some sort of awesome Kaufman-esque bit. I played it. I think she's serious. Here, you listen.
So I'm here at the Banshee Labyrinth, still in costume. 25 minutes after my show should have started, and this is the Oasis effect. So I did a couple of hours flyering as I usually would. That would usually get me a good crowd, and I could tell it wasn't working. Big groups of people in Oasis shirts coming past, no interest in hearing about my show or anybody else's show that was out there advertising. My children's show this morning also cancelled due to 0 audience members showing up. And I'm also aware of performers losing their accommodation because landlords have suddenly realised that they can make more money by renting the space out to Oasis fans. I think it's absolutely heartbreaking to be cancelling shows. The first time I've done this in 10 years at the Edinburgh Fringe. Literally pulled a show because no one showed up. I think the Fringe Society should have seen this coming and done more about it. And I think a band like Oasis should be more considerate of their fellow performers when they decide where and when to put their shows on.
Kate, are you serious? Or is this brilliant? Sketch duo The Mayor and His Daughter are playing the Fringe, and they caught up with voicemag.uk. They say they've made it their mission to repair the fractious community of modern Britain using professional sketch comedy. What's their advice for the Edinburgh Fringe? They say our producer Rosie recommends that you shower, do laundry, and sleep in whatever accommodation you've booked. You paid good money for it. Why not use it? All right, what's their show about? They say it all starts with a question. What unforeseen events may occur during a comedy show for which we must immediately rehearse the audience? It naturally follows, for example, that an audience must be prepared if a demon came on stage and started performing comedy. Therefore, we've built a show around educating and informing our followers about the nature of demons. You'll find them at the Assembly Roxy Snug Bar at 4:10 until August 24th. The Times, not big fans of Joe Treacy's show at the Fringe. They called it a lecture with laughs rather than a stand-up act. 3 stars out of 5. Yikes. The Times wrote, normally when Fringe comics give themselves a title such as 10 Things I Hate About Me, you know they've amped up their anxieties for hilarity. Joe is here to find a sunny way of describing depression, drug addiction, loneliness, paranoia, compulsive lying, suicidal impulses, and a heart attack at the age of 23. It's not an easy task. He pulls off the difficult balancing act of firing out awful yet funny stories. An example, the time he had his appendix out as a child, rather than admit he had been lying to his mother about the stomach ache he used to keep himself out of school. Wow. Yet, it's a comical confession, a lecture with laughs, rather than a stand-up show. That's at the Underbelly through the 25th. They also did not like Rosie O'Donnell, 2 stars out of 5. The Times writes, in common knowledge, her commandingly told yet sentimental Edinburgh Fringe debut, the Irish-American actress and talk show host Rosie O'Donnell tells us all about fleeing Trump's America to move to Dublin this year with her 12-year-old child. This is storytelling rather than stand-up, flecked with wit, but steadier and more presidential than anything her nemesis, quote, the Orange Menace, unquote, tends to offer from the White House. O'Donnell is self-aware enough to puncture her own pretensions when she gets too earnest, but there's also something self-regarding about this story, so much that it's very much a famous person's show for their fans, not a way of making new ones. We'll stay over in the UK today. Katherine Ryan is going to host a podcast in which 2 comedian guests write erotic stories about each other. It's called Write Me Dirty. Each story will be triggered by a ridiculous prompt, and after both tales are aired, Katherine Ryan will crown the week's erotica champion based on sexiness, funniness, and creativity. What might a prompt be? An example, apocalypse must include a zombie and a can of beans. Katherine Ryan said, when they asked me if I wanted to host a show about sex, erotic, and fiction, I didn't have to think twice. I said, absolutely not. When I realized I'd have a front seat as comedians squirm through the awkwardness of reading aloud the erotic fiction they written about each other for a prize, I reconsidered. Chris Redd is doing a new scripted audio comedy called Headcase, described as a satirical take on the hip-hop industry. It takes on topics like the Drake-Kendrick Lamar feud. Also appearing in this thing, Rosebud Baker, Beck Bennett, Kyle Mooney, Heidi Gardner, and some others. You will find that on Audible. And I've bounced this one a couple times. Let's do this one. The headline. Joking about her abusive husband launched this Chinese comedian to stardom. The authorities aren't laughing. From CNN, Fan Chunli looks every bit the middle-aged woman from rural China among a crowd of youngsters vying to become the next breakout star in one of China's most popular stand-up comedy contests. She stands out. When the 50-year-old takes the mic, she beams with life and drips sarcasm, unloading jokes about her abusive ex-husband that brings the audience into a mix of laughter and tears. Footage of her routine went viral, then officials in the eastern province of Zhejiang issued a warning saying such jokes are, quote, catalysts that provoke gender conflict. They didn't directly name Fan or the show, only alluded to a newcomer dubbed an industry gem, which was the nickname given to her by the show's judges. The local government's political department wrote on Chinese social media platform WeChat, the content of some talk shows is gradually deviating from the nature of humor, simplifying gender issues and repeatedly making a fuss about the opposition between men and women. Any discussion of gender issues should be rational. I'm not sure they understand how comedy works. And that is your comedy news for today. Howard Stern's not going anywhere. Neither am I. I'll be back tomorrow. See you then.